right, in this video we're going to talk about your grip and how that can affect slicing, right? Okay, so I'm a self-taught player. I started off in 1973. There's no information out there. Somewhere around 83, 84, 85, somewhere in there, late 80s, we started to get more information about about how to swing, right? And it was I would hear this term here. I was like, oh, they have a weak grip or a strong grip. I was like, weak or strong? Like, when you think about those choices of words, right? Weak, you would think what? They're holding on to it real weak, and then strong would be what? You have a strong hold on it, right? But that's not really the reference. The reference is to how is your wrist, okay? How is your wrist turned relative to the club head, okay? So, categorically, we say, on the lead hand, I'm a right-handed player on the lead hand, okay? If it's turned counterclockwise over here, that's a weak grip, okay? Conversely, if it's turned clockwise, that's a strong grip, okay? And then this would be a strong, and this would be a weak, right? Okay, you get it, okay? So what? But it doesn't really matter in terms of strong and weak. I don't want you getting confused about strong and weak. It's really what? How do you take and place your hands on the club relative to themselves, right? Because if you're going to do something with the right, you got to do something corresponding with the left. If I put this one over here, and do those look like they would work? Probably not, right? But if I put this one over here and this one over here, you go, well, those would probably work. So you go, oh wait, that's a strong grip. Everything is turned over here to the side, okay? So the reference of strong versus weak is the player's ability or inability, okay, to get the club face to rotate back into square, right? To get the toe of the club to catch back up to the heel, right? I mean, it starts there. I'm assuming you lined up correctly, right? Toe and heel are lined up, okay? And then as soon as I start rotating, now what? Now the club face is pointing out to the right, okay? And so it's pointing to the right, so you have to what? You got to make sure it gets back in there to square. But the way that everybody was teaching it was a lot of what? It was a lot of club face rotation, meaning that you are trying to square out here. Now that is not how I teach the golf swing, okay? Because this was so hard to time. Oops, I turned it too early. Oops, I turned it too late, right? So this sort of, rotating the club face with your hands, that's where we get this strength there, okay? So we're not in this video on the slice series. I'm not gonna say, oh, if you have if you want to fix your slice, strengthen up your grip. No, that's not correct, okay? Okay, that's not correct. You can't just throw everything into one bucket and say that's gonna work, okay? Or if your grip is too strong and you're hooking the ball, just weaken it up, okay? I want you to start to pay attention to one, okay? How do you put your hands on the club? Do you feel like when you come down, you look down and you see, part of your forearm here, right? How do you have them on there, right? The best place to do that, right? Just get your grip on there, right? Just bring your hands up here in front of your face and look at it, right? So if you looked at mine right here, I looked at the trail hand right here. If I look at this line between my thumb and my forefinger right there, okay, that line, when I put my hands on there, it's pointing right here. It's just inside my trail shoulder, inside my trail shoulder. If I moved it over here to the side, okay, a bit more this way, right, then that line would be pointing where? Underneath my shoulder, or over here, and it would be pointing up in here. So a good check point with your trail hand, right, should be once you put your hands up here, if you just drew that line between your index finger and your thumb, you can go, it's pointing at my trail shoulder. If you look at your lead hand, okay, if you look at your lead hand, once I get my lead hand situated on there, see that V? I'm coming in here, where's that pointing? Trail shoulder, right? Trail shoulder. So I have both of them, right, with the trail shoulder. So this one would be turned, the lead one is turned slightly more clockwise, right? And then this one is not turned clockwise, right? It's just up against the side of the shaft in neutral. So that's gonna put both those two V's, right? These two V's, this one here and this one here, when you grip it, they're gonna put them over here towards the inside part of your right shoulder. So make sure that when you come in, what other steps are we gonna add now, right? We're gonna say, okay, well, we got our target line, we got our body alignment, okay? And over here, we got the ball position, okay? And then now we wanna have our hands in a position that we can use our wrist correctly and square the club face, okay? So that's gonna be the third check, is you're just paying attention to how you have your hands on that club, right? And just get a little check. Put it down there. Yep. Okay, so if you work with that, it's gonna be great. So now we've checked off, okay, are we squared up? Is the ball in the right spot? Is our grip correct? So let's move on to one other thing that may be causing you your slicing.